Ever stayed in a job you hated way longer than you should have? Or maybe you've looked at your bank account and wondered why you bought that expensive gadget you've used exactly once. And let's be honest, who hasn't felt that knot in their stomach when the stock market takes a dip, urging you to sell everything right at the bottom? If you're nodding your head, you're not alone. We tend to beat ourselves up over these things. We tell ourselves we're just undisciplined, or maybe not smart enough, or just plain irrational. But what if I told you that these aren't actually character flaws? Rolf Dobelli, the author of The Art of Thinking Clearly, suggests looking at it differently. Think of these moments not as personal failures, but as software bugs, systematic, predictable errors in the human operating system.
Imagine you're trying to run the latest high-end video editing software on a computer built in the 1990s. The hardware isn't broken, it was actually top of the line for its time, but it simply wasn't designed to handle the complexity of the modern tasks you're throwing at it. That is essentially the human brain in the 21st century. Our brains were engineered for a hunter-gatherer environment, a world of immediate physical dangers, scarcity, and small tribal groups. In that world, if you saw your peers running away from something, you didn't pause to debate the logic. You ran too, because if you didn't, a saber-toothed cat might eat you. That herd instinct saved your life then. Today, it makes you panic sell your 401k just because everyone on cable news is screaming recession. We are walking around with Stone Age software trying to navigate a digital world. And when this outdated software clashes with modern reality, we get what Dobelli calls cognitive errors. These aren't just random mistakes, they are systematic deviations from logic. They happen over and over again in the exact same way.
And that's where the pain comes in, isn't it? It's that stinging feeling of regret. The "I should have known better." You look back at a decision and it seems so obvious now that you were wrong. But at the moment, your brain was just running its default code that was written for a world that no longer exists. So, before we dive into the specific bugs Dobelli identifies, take a deep breath. You aren't broken. You're just running a legacy operating system. And the first step to patching that system is understanding exactly where the glitches are. In the next segment, we're going to look at one of the most common glitches of all, the reason why successful people often look like geniuses, even when they're just lucky.
And speaking of patching that system, you've come to the right place. You are listening to The Last Read, Books for Your Ears, Wisdom for Your Life. If you want to upgrade your mental operating system and stop making the same old mistakes, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. And if you want to follow along with the source code yourself, we've put a link to the hard copy of The Art of Thinking Clearly right in the description.
So, what is the agenda for today? We are going to expose the invisible traps that your brain sets for you every single day. Dobelli calls them cognitive errors, systematic deviations from logic that trip us up over and over again. These are the silent killers of success, the reasons why smart people make foolish financial decisions, why leaders stick with failing projects, and why we often feel like we're losing control of our own choices.
We aren't just talking about random slip-ups here. We're talking about specific, predictable mental errors that the most successful people in the world have learned to avoid. Dobelli's promise is simple. You don't need more cunning or new ideas to succeed. You just need less irrationality. But who is this guy telling us how to think? You might expect a book like this to be written by a tenured psychology professor in an ivory tower, but that is definitely not the case here. In fact, the man behind The Art of Thinking Clearly, Rolf Dobelli, is about as far from an ivory tower academic as you can get. He's a Swiss businessman, a serial entrepreneur, and a guy who has spent his life in the trenches of high-stakes decision-making. You might know him as the founder of World.Minds. That's an exclusive community of some of the world's most distinguished thinkers, scientists, and artists. We're talking about a network that bridges the gap between science, business, and culture. So Dobelli is someone who constantly surrounds himself with massive intellects.
But here is the really interesting part about why he wrote this book. He didn't write it to get tenure, and he didn't write it to impress psychologists. He wrote it for himself. After years as a CEO and entrepreneur, Dobelli realized something terrifying. He had accumulated a certain amount of wealth, and he was petrified of losing it. He realized that while he couldn't guarantee more success, he could try to systematically eliminate the errors that destroy it. So he started carrying around a notebook. Every time he caught himself, or someone else, making a systematic error in logic, he wrote it down. He calls it his list of mental errors, a personal collection of traps to avoid so he wouldn't make foolish financial choices or ruin his reputation.
That context is crucial because it changes how you read this book. It's not a textbook, it's a field guide. It's practical, actionable advice from a man who just wanted to stop tripping over his own shoelaces in the business world. And honestly, that makes the first trap we need to discuss today feel a lot more personal. It's a trap that every single one of us has fallen into, usually when we're trying to justify a mistake we've already made. It's that nagging voice that tells you to keep going just because you've already started. The dangerous habit of throwing good money after bad.
It's called the sunk cost fallacy. And if you've ever sat through a movie that you knew was terrible 20 minutes in, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Picture this. It's Friday night. You're at the theater. You paid $15 for the ticket, maybe splurged another $10 on popcorn. But half an hour in, you realize the movie is a disaster. The plot makes no sense, the acting is wooden, it is absolute torture. But do you get up and leave? Probably not. You sit there, shifting in your seat, checking your watch, thinking, well, I paid $15 for this, I might as well stay and get my money's worth.
Dobelli points out that this is pure irrationality. That $15, it's gone. It's what economists call a sunk cost. Whether you stay and suffer for another 90 minutes or walk out and enjoy the cool night air, you aren't getting that money back. By staying, you aren't saving your investment. You are just paying a second cost, your time and your patience, to justify the first one. You are quite literally throwing good money after bad. We do the same thing with food. How many times have you finished a heavy, greasy meal at a restaurant, forcing down the last few bites even though you were full 10 minutes ago, just because you paid for it? The money left your wallet the moment you ordered. Punishing your stomach doesn't balance the ledger.
It seems harmless with a movie or a steak, but in business or in life, this trap is dangerous. It's why people stay in draining relationships for years just because we've already been together so long. It's why companies keep pouring millions into failing projects to avoid admitting the initial investment was a mistake. Rational decision-making requires you to forget the costs you've already incurred. The only thing that matters is the future assessment, not the past expense. But letting go of the past is hard. It requires admitting you were wrong. And that brings us to the next mental trap, one that Dobelli calls the mother of all misconceptions. It's a mechanism our brains use to protect our egos, a filter that blocks out any uncomfortable truth that contradicts what we already believe.
Confirmation bias. Dobelli actually calls this the mother of all misconceptions. And honestly, it's a title well earned. Confirmation bias is the tendency to interpret new information so that it becomes compatible with our existing theories, our beliefs, and our convictions. Think of it like a mental filter. Any information that supports what we already believe passes right through, shining and bright. But any information that contradicts us, the filter blocks it. It labels it as an exception, or fake news, or just irrelevant noise. We see this every single day. Take your news feed, for instance. If you have a certain political leaning, you probably visit websites or follow accounts that reflect those same views. When you read an article that agrees with you, you nod along, thinking, "Exactly, I knew it." That's the filter letting the data in. But if you stumble across an article that challenges your view, you likely scroll past it, or you find a reason to dismiss the author as biased. You aren't looking for the truth, you're looking for validation.
It happens in our personal lives too. Think about the person stuck in a bad relationship. Their partner might be unreliable, dismissive, or even unkind. Friends and family see the red flags clearly, but the person inside the relationship, they filter those flags out. They focus entirely on the one time their partner brought them flowers, or the one nice text message from last week, using those tiny scraps of evidence to confirm the belief that he really loves me, while ignoring the mountain of evidence that says otherwise. Dobelli points out that facts do not cease to exist just because they are ignored, but our brains certainly try to make them disappear. Actually, there's a great story in the book about Charles Darwin. Darwin was terrified of confirmation bias. He knew that his brain would naturally try to forget or dismiss any evidence that contradicted his theory of evolution. So he developed a habit. Whenever he stumbled upon an observation or a fact that argued against his theory, he would write it down immediately.
He had to. He knew that if he didn't capture that contradictory thought within 30 minutes, his brain would actively delete it to protect his ego. He forced himself to pay more attention to the things that proved him wrong than the things that proved him right. That is incredible discipline, and is the only way to fight this trap. You have to go out of your way to find the disconfirming evidence. You have to try to prove yourself wrong. But doing that is uncomfortable. It makes us feel vulnerable. So usually, we take the easy way out. We don't just rely on our own internal filters. We look around to see what everyone else is doing. We figure that if a lot of other people believe something, it must be true, right? And that instinct to follow the herd, to trust the crowd over our own eyes, leads us directly into the next trap.
Social proof. This is the phenomenon where we feel we are behaving correctly when we act the same way as other people. In academic terms, it is sometimes called the herd instinct, and essentially it means the more people who follow a certain idea, the more we consider that idea to be correct. Now, this isn't just a bad habit we picked up recently. It is actually a survival mechanism deeply hardwired into our biology. Rolf Dobelli asks us to imagine we are on the Serengeti 50,000 years ago. You are out hunting with your friends, and suddenly they all bolt. They start running as fast as they can in the opposite direction. What do? Do you stand there, scratch your chin, and wait to verify if there is actually a lion approaching? No, you run. You run as fast as you can, and you reflect on why you are running later, once you are safe.
If you had stayed behind to weigh the evidence, you would have exited the gene pool. We are the descendants of the people who copied the crowd, the ones who ran first and asked questions later. But today, we aren't usually running from lions, yet that instinct remains. When you are in a strange city and you are hungry, you happen upon two restaurants side by side. One is completely empty. The other one has a line out the door. Which one do you choose? Almost instinctively, you join the line. You assume the busy one is better because other people are there. You figure they can't all be wrong. We do the exact same thing online. You go to buy a toaster on Amazon. One has 2 reviews. The other has 10,000 reviews and a 4-star rating. You don't even look at the specs of the first one. You buy the one with the social validation. We find safety in numbers, but here is the problem. Simply because a lot of people believe something or do something does not make it true.
Dobelli quotes the novelist W. Somerset Maugham, who put it perfectly. If 50 million people say something foolish, it is still foolish. Social proof can make us buy products we don't need. It can create stock market bubbles, and it can make us adopt beliefs that are factually incorrect just because everyone else seems to agree. We are terrified of being the outlier, so we silence our own skepticism to fit in with the herd. And this reliance on observation, on looking at what others are doing or what others have achieved,
leads us into another fascinating error. We look at successful people, athletes, models, or top performers, and we assume we understand how they got there. We see the results, and we confuse them with the cause. For instance, when you see a professional swimmer with an incredible V-shaped physique, you might think, if I swim that much, I'll get a body like that too. But you might have the logic completely backwards.
That specific reversal of logic, confusing the result with the cause, is what Rolf Dobelli calls the swimmer's body illusion. It is a subtle but pervasive error. We look at professional swimmers and we see their long torsos, their broad shoulders, their powerful builds, and we think, if I swim that much, I will look like that too. But Dobelli argues that we are confusing the selection factor with the result. Professional swimmers don't have perfect bodies because they train extensively. Rather, they are excellent swimmers because they were born with those physiques. Their bodies were a criterion for selection, not the result of their activities. Nature handed them a physique that is streamlined for the water, and that biological advantage allowed them to become top athletes. If you or I swam for 6 hours a day, we might get fitter, but we wouldn't suddenly sprout the skeletal structure of an Olympian. And once you understand this, you start seeing the swimmer's body illusion everywhere. Take the beauty industry, for example.
You see a commercial for a new face cream. The model has flawless, radiant skin. The implication is clear: buy this cream and you will look like her. But this is the same illusion. The model wasn't chosen for the ad because she had bad skin that the cream fixed. She was chosen because she was born with naturally flawless skin. Her beauty is the selection criterion, not the result of the product. Dobelli warns that without this illusion, half of the advertising campaigns in the world simply wouldn't work. We see it in education and business as well. Consider Harvard University or any top-tier institution. We perceive Harvard as a great university because its graduates are so successful, wealthy, and influential. We assume the education caused that success. But is Harvard actually a brilliant educator? Or does it simply recruit the smartest, most ambitious, and most driven students from the start? If you took those same students and sent them to a state college, they would likely still end up successful because their drive is intrinsic. The university is just the filter, the selection mechanism.
The danger of the swimmer's body illusion is that it leads us to chase false causes. We mimic the habits of successful people, thinking those habits caused the success, when the success might actually stem from traits we cannot simply copy. We confuse the ticket with the destination. So Dobelli advises us to be honest with ourselves. Before you buy the product or sign up for the expensive course, look in the mirror. Ask yourself if you are looking at a result or a selection factor. However, even if we manage to see past these illusions, even if we clear our minds of false causes, we still have to make decisions. And in the modern world, we are told that to make good decisions, we need options. We need variety. We assume that having more choices means more freedom and more happiness. But as we are about to find out, standing in front of endless possibilities might actually be the thing that paralyzes us completely.
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? We fight for freedom, for autonomy, and we assume that autonomy means having as many options as possible. But when we walk into a grocery store, that freedom suddenly feels like a heavy burden. Rolf Dobelli calls this the paradox of choice. To illustrate this, Dobelli references the classic experiment conducted by psychologist Sheena Iyengar. The setting was an upscale supermarket, the kind of place where you might find truffle oil and imported cheeses. On the first day, researchers set up a tasting booth displaying 24 different varieties of exotic jam. It was a colorful, impressive display. On the second day, they reduced the selection significantly. They displayed only 6 varieties. Now, logic dictates that the table with 24 jams should be more successful. More options mean a higher likelihood that the customer finds their specific favorite flavor, right? Well, the result was quite the opposite. while the table with 24 jams attracted more attention, meaning more people stopped to look. The table with only 6 jams sold 10 times more product. 10 times. Dobelli explains that this happens because a large selection leads to inner paralysis. When you are standing in the pasta aisle, staring at 50 different types of marinara sauce, garlic, mushroom, spicy, chunky, organic, artisan, your brain has to perform a massive amount of computation to find the perfect one. It creates decision fatigue.
The mental effort required to weigh the pros and cons of 50 sauces outweighs the benefit of the sauce itself. So, often, we just give up. We walk away empty-handed. Or we grab the same brand we always buy, simply to end the agony of choosing. But the problem runs deeper than just paralysis. Dobelli argues that an abundance of choice actually leads to poorer decisions and significantly less happiness. Imagine you are looking for a partner. In the past, you might have had a choice between a handful of people in your village or neighborhood. Today, thanks to dating apps, you have thousands of potential partners in your pocket. You might think this guarantees finding a soulmate, but actually it fosters a nagging sense of doubt. When you have unlimited options, you can never be sure you made the best choice. Even if you find someone wonderful, you are constantly haunted by the possibility that one of the other thousands of swipes might have been slightly better. We see this same pattern on a Friday night, scrolling through Netflix. There are thousands of titles available. Yet how often do you scroll for 30 minutes, overwhelmed by the possibilities, only to give up and re-watch an episode of a show you've seen a dozen times?
The abundance of choice raises our standards to an impossible level. We expect perfection, because with so many options, perfection must be out there. And when the result is merely good, we feel disappointed. So, what is the solution? How do we navigate a world built on excess? Dobelli advises us to stop trying to be maximizers. A maximizer is someone who needs to check every single option to ensure they made the absolute best decision. This is a recipe for misery. Instead, he suggests we become satisficers. This means setting your criteria before you enter the situation. If you need a toaster, decide that it needs to have 2 slots and cost less than $50. The moment you find a toaster that meets those criteria, buy it. Don't look at the other 50 models. Don't worry if there is one that is slightly more energy efficient for the same price. Good enough is surprisingly perfect. It seems that the secret to clear thinking, and perhaps happiness, isn't about adding more brain power or analyzing more data. It is often about knowing what to ignore. It is about stripping away the noise. And this leads us to perhaps the most powerful mental model of all, a method of thinking that doesn't focus on what is right, but rather focuses entirely on removing what is wrong.
It is called via negativa. In theology, this term refers to the idea that we cannot say what God is, only what God is not. But Dobelli applies this ancient concept to our daily lives, and it is brilliant. He tells the famous story of the Pope asking Michelangelo how he created the statue of David, that masterpiece of the Renaissance. Michelangelo is said to have replied, "It's simple. I just removed everything that was not David." This is the essence of thinking clearly. We are obsessed with trying to find the secret to success or the key to happiness. We buy books on how to get rich, how to find love, how to be perfect. But Dobelli argues that we usually have no idea what actually causes success. There are too many variables, too much luck involved.
However, we often know exactly what destroys success. We know that trusting a charismatic stranger with our life savings is a bad idea. We know that interrupting our work every 3 minutes to check email destroys our focus. We know that engaging in groupthink leads to disaster. So, the strategy is simple. Stop looking for the magic bullet. Instead, focus entirely on avoiding the bullet. If you can successfully systematically eliminate the major thinking errors we've talked about, if you can stop being irrational,
success tends to take care of itself. As Dobelli puts it, we don't need to be smarter, we just need to be less stupid.
It is a humble conclusion, but a liberating one. You don't need to add more brain power to your life. You just need to chip away at the stone, removing the biases, the fallacies, and the mental clutter that isn't you. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the art of thinking clearly. If you want to dive deeper into these 99 thinking errors, and I highly suggest you do, as we only scratch the surface, you can find a link to the book right in the description. Thank you for thinking clearly with me. If you enjoyed this and want more wisdom distilled for your ears, make sure you are subscribed to The Last Read. Until next time, keep chipping away at the stone.